have graciously offered to provide us some of their experience and knowledge on off-ball officiating. We felt this would be a great topic to kind of tie into a few topics we've already covered with the legal guarding position and verticality, and also it'll apply somewhat to the RA play that we discussed here just on Wednesday night. So I am going to hand it over to Kevin and MJ. They're going to lead us through some stuff for off ball, and we should all be able to gain something out of it tonight. So with no further ado, Kevin, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Tristan. Yeah, so when a few weeks ago, when Tristan and Jared sent the email out and say, if anybody wants to help co-lead a session, let me know. And I said, sure, I'll help lead something. And I got assigned off-ball officiating with MJ. And I can't think of a better partner to talk about off-ball officiating than MJ. And here's a little story. I was roughing a St. Thomas women's JV game. This was pretty early after I got into officiating. I'd been to MJ's camp, but I'd never seen her work. So I worked the JV game and I said, oh, I'm going to stick around and watch how the real pros do it. And swear to God, one of the most distinctive things I remember about MJ was her off-ball officiating. At the time, I probably didn't call it that. I probably called it, she doesn't even look where the ball is. I remember I was in the bleachers, MJ was center on the other side of the court, ball was over in the trail lead side. And I just remember MJ, looking nowhere close to where the ball was. And I had never noticed that or seen anybody do anything like that. And I just remember, again, having it make an impression on me. So I'm honored to be co-hosting with the real greatest of all time, MJ, Ms. MJ Wagenson. But so in the hours and hours that MJ and I spent preparing for this, we agreed that I would kind of cover some of the basics first and talk to some of the newer officials on the call. And then MJ will come in with some more advanced topics and nuances and subtleties. So I am going to share my screen because I've got a couple very basic little things to assist us here. So when we were first starting out, we all probably heard "you're ball watching." And I'm going to make fun of myself. I'm going to exaggerate a little bit. But maybe when we were brand new, we wanted to say, well, of course I'm ball watching. What else am I supposed to watch, right? Before we became officials, when we were spectators, that's what people do. You watch the ball. So I think we have to be aware of that and overcome that inclination. So maybe the next step up is we realize we've got to expand our field of vision. We have to watch the entire front court. We can't just be dialed in on the ball handler. But what we really want to get to is when we're focused only on our specific coverage area. And I'm going to ask you to do a quick little exercise. It might be silly, but I'm willing to bet as you're watching this on your computer monitor or on your phone, you're not really thinking about your vision. You're not really thinking about what you're focused on. But we're going to change that. So lift up your right hand, turn your head 90 degrees. Look at your hand. I'm pretty sure you can still see the monitor out of your peripheral vision, right? And if we turn our heads back and now look at the monitor, but also be focused on your right hand, I'm also willing to bet there's something just slightly different going on with your eyesight. You're focused on making sure you've got peripheral vision. And I just would say that's the kind of approach we need to exercise on the court. You can turn your head and be focused on your primary coverage area and not miss anything going on in the court. So at least that's what I've tried to aspire to, is realizing, look, I can still take in all that I need to do. And if I've got two great partners, which we always do, they can worry about stuff going on in their area. I still won't be blindsided if something really comes up. The other slide that I've got is how many times have we heard, be strong in your primary? And again, maybe making a little bit of exaggerated fun of myself. Maybe the first time I heard that, it sounded to me like someone saying, hey, go get him. Be good at what you do. And it's like, well, of course I'm going to be strong in my primary. I'm not going to be weak in my primary. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to get my calls. Yeah, you bet. I'm going to be strong in my primary. Well, that's not really what we're trying to say. I think what we're trying to say is let your colleagues be strong in their primaries. Don't be strong in their primaries. Trust your partners. And what we really want to get to is we only want to make a call outside of our area in rare exceptions. And this is when the 3 B's come in, which are be late, be right, and be needed. And let's just talk a second more about each of those. I think we've all heard, hopefully, the term cadence whistle. We want to try and avoid double simultaneous whistles. Sometimes they're unavoidable. And maybe it's because the foul or the violation occurs at one of those juncture spots. But whenever possible, we really want to let whoever's got primary coverage area make the first whistle. And if it's the right call and they missed it, and we are absolutely sure that it's the right call, okay, we can come in late. I'm sure all of us probably played basketball. I remember when I used to play basketball and I'd be the victim of a late call, nothing would drive me crazier, right? It's like, how incompetent are you, dude, that you got to take a second to figure out that that was a foul on me? Well, as officials, we got to get over that. A late call is okay. In fact, a late call is preferred if that's what we got to do. So be late, be right, and be needed. And let me just make up an example. Let's say it's, we just started the game. We're 2 minutes into the game. We're C. There's a traveling on the other side of the court, obvious traveling. Well, we can come in and make that a late call, and we might be absolutely right. But we ask, is that needed? Is it really necessary to call that call at that point in the game? Probably not. However, if there's 8 seconds left in the game and the team that's got the ball is down by 2, and somebody drives to the hoop and absolutely gets crushed, and for whatever reason, our partners don't make that call, that's when you need to step in and make that call, right? That's the old crew saver call. So that's what I'm talking about, be late, be right, and be needed. The other thing that I want to share is I've got a video here. So just give me a second to set this up. Okay. So this comes from our friends at Court Club Elite, and it's really just probably 6 or 7 seconds of action. But particularly because we've got this lag issue on Zoom, what I've done is I've slowed it way down and I've kind of zoomed in at portions. So even if it's lagging, hopefully your video will kind of catch up and not be too hard to watch. But anyway, we're gonna see, well, actually, let's start out. So here we got C, hopefully you can see my cursor, lead, trail. So the C, and I don't know these guys' names, but we see them pretty often in Big Ten contests, right? This tall, bald guy, he's looking at his matchup, right here. Lead is looking at his matchup, as he should. What I find interesting is trail, even though the ball's right here, he's still got his eyesight kind of turned here. But as you see, the ball will come over. He's going to turn his head gradually. Like I said, I've got it way slowed down, so it's even laggy to me, but hopefully it's going to work for most of us. So it's interesting. He is right on the border between the trail and the center's coverage area. But you can see at this point, this guy's turned his attention here. And what's going to happen is big man for red. That's, I don't know if it's even from this season or last season, but this might be Reavers, but he's going to come and set a pick on this guy, right? And I've zoomed in, it's going to be really blurry, just to warn you, right? So here again, you can see trail is looking across at the ball, but as this action happens, he's going to gradually turn his head to the point where, again, you can see he's looking right at this screen. Again, keep in mind the ball is way over here on the other side of the court. You can tell he's not looking anywhere close to the ball. He's looking where he should be. And likewise, lead is out here looking at the screen. Again, not looking anywhere close. Now, what's interesting is the Court Club Elite folks took lead to task because, and I'll stop it here, I cut a few frames out, but now the Wisconsin players turned the corner and you can see the lead is still looking at the screen when he should be looking here, right? His eyes should be on his primary matchup in his primary coverage area. And now I'm going to speed it up a little. And what happens is there's a collision and arms go flailing. And I run this back again. And here, we just learned about legal guarding position, right? 2 feet on the floor, torso facing the opponent. If the offensive player does not have the ball, you need to give him time and distance. Well, we can argue if appropriate time and distance is given here, this guy basically takes 1.5 steps. So again, I'll try and run it slow. Plants his left foot, there's 1, and 1.5, 2, boom, collision ensues. And now I run it more toward live action, right? And what I want you to do is look at where lead is looking. At the time of the collision, he's still looking out at the screen. And you'll see, if you watch his head, he sees the arms out of his peripheral vision. And then he goes, oh, I got to have something. So just, I think I run this back a couple times, right? You see him watch, turn his head a little bit too late, right there. Oh, I got to fall. And then I just let this play out to see the player's reaction. And I got a few seconds of ISO at the end. But the Court Club Elite guy's opinion was this should be a no call. This was incidental contact, even though it was kind of severe, didn't really give any advantage or disadvantage. It certainly shouldn't have been a foul on the defense. So hopefully I wasn't silent that whole time. Did you all get that, hear that? Any questions on that little segment?
We got it, Kevin. You're good.
So I will turn it over to MJ at this point for some advanced discussion on off-ball officiating.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kevin. It's always good to look at that, and maybe we found the optimal way to show Zoom on or to show video on Zoom is to slow it down to creep speed, and then at least it doesn't chop up so bad because it looks pretty good. Okay, so good. All right, thanks. Welcome everybody. We're as Kevin alluded to, you know, we've talked about legal guarding, we've talked about the RA, we've talked about verticality. So we're going to kind of just pull this all together with this last bit on off-ball coverage. And you know, some of you are veterans and you practice this all the time. Some of you are new, and this is, you know, you're maybe listening to Kevin going, okay, what's he talking about? Well, we're going to look at this a little bit more. We'll break it down into some still shots because I am not very happy with how video works. So I took some snaps so that we can look at some different shots. So again, just to tell you, you know, just to remind you, and most people know this, but if you're newer to the association, we look at a lot of clips. It's not meant to make fun of anybody or point out mistakes. Most of the time when we use clips, we're in them. So it's something that we've done for ourselves to learn from. So that's really what it's all about. So I took some snips of clips. This is one Tristan sent me. So if you're looking at that lead official, that's Tristan. If you think one of these guys looks familiar, this actually was from a play recently that Tristan had. And if we just take a quick look at this, I've color coded kind of the areas of where we should be looking in a front court play set. So if we look at this, it's pretty self-explanatory the way this starts. One of the things that you want to do in your pregame is talk about your lines of intersection, and we'll talk about that more as plays progress, because plays do overlap, and we may end up, like Kevin mentioned, we may end up having a double whistle someplace, which is fine. But again, just talk about primary coverage, secondary coverage, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we go. Pregame, those lines of intersection based on ball handler dribblers coming off screens, potential drive plays. And of course that also can roll in the RA as part of that. And then that way we don't have any surprises. We don't have any confusion about who's looking where, when. We can come in the locker room and say, hey, you know, what did you see on that? And the officials, your partner says, oh, well, I saw this. And you're like, oh man, I'm really glad because I picked that up late and I didn't get a good look at it. And, you know, I really bit down on the whistle. I thought we missed something. And your partner's like, no, absolutely not. I had a great look. So back to what Kevin said earlier, you know, trust in your crew and trust in your partners. And part of that trust comes from being comfortable with each other from the get-go on that pregame. So if we look at this play set, you can see the trails on the ball handler, dribbler, and their primary defender out there on the arc. The center's off ball in that competitive matchup, and in their primary and that potential cutter that's going to come across. And then, of course, the lead's off ball with those two primary matchups and another potential cutter, that player that's coming across the top of the lane. So as this play progresses, then the ball goes over in front of the trail over there where that blue is, and on the wing. So it kind of takes the trail out of this play just a little bit, because they have that primary defender right up tight on them. So you can see that they've got a count going there. Our lead starts to rotate because they really have no competitive matchup. If you look at the yellow where they're looking, they're 4 or 5 feet apart. So he's going to keep them in his peripheral, but he's also looking ahead a little bit to see what he could potentially be helping with if that ball handler dribbler comes off that primary defender to drive, because then he's going to have to look at that secondary defender that's in the yellow that might come across the lane. That deep wing in the corner could come in and set a screen, which would then, maybe take the trail out of that for just a split second. So the lead's going to have to help with that. And if you look at what's going on here in the top half semicircle, the center could have their hands full there too, because we got a potential for the player that's out on the 3-point arc that's going to cut. And we've got another player coming across that could screen. So again, trusting that everybody's got their matchups in their areas, and making sure that we've got legal play all the way around. And in the high school game that we're talking about, this play set could go back and forth. We could rotate back and forth as they perimeter pass and set this play up and try to run it over and over and over. So we might have to come back and forth a few times, rotate back and forth with the ball. So again, just being aware of where that potential next play is going to come from so that we can officiate what's going on in our primary. In the college game where this clip came from, we have a shot clock. So sooner or later, they're going to run out of time. But in our high school games, this could go on a while, especially if a team's very good when their fundamentals with screening and ball handling, those kind of things. So just being prepared of knowing what you've got going on right now and what the potential next play is, because it can put you in position to have a good angle to look at the legality of a screen or the legality of verticality on a defender. So when we go to this next slide, then here, we're going to see this cutter coming around the screen that never really happened in the center's area. And if you see that player that's got the yellow oval around her, she's kind of slid past to stay with that offensive player to pick her up as she comes around the corner. Now the ball's still out on the wing, out in front of the trail. So the trail still got their count going here. And as we know, this all happens pretty quickly. So if you take a look at the lead, their competitive matchup on the low block opposite is still not competitive. So they're extending their primary out. There's no reason to officiate air, because otherwise he really has nothing going on in his area. So as that cutter comes around the top, the center's taking a look at any potential screening issues there. And then he's actually going to kind of get taken out of that play by 11 and their offensive player when that collision happens. I'm not sure that the C maybe didn't get themselves a little too low. Sometimes it gets distorted on the video, the angle that they're at, depending on where the camera's at. But if you see in that oval now, you can see that the player in white stepped up and ran into that cutter. So you can see that the lead has stayed with that. And like Kevin was talking about on his other clip, you can watch everybody's head and see where they're looking. The C could potentially help with this as well if he didn't get his line of vision blocked. And the lead stays with this. And then, as you can see, comes and gets the foul because they end up on the floor. Now, the trail, if you notice where the ball handler dribbler is coming around the back side of that, that's designed that way to kind of pick that player off a little bit and open that drive up. Well, it never happened because of of the illegal contact caused by their teammate. So, you know, there again, there's just a good example of staying with the play, knowing what the potential next play is, and not officiating error, being able to extend your coverage out and know what your partners are looking at. Now, this is something too to cover in the pregame, so that as a trail, you can be comfortable to say, I don't really have to walleye it here and watch this screen, watch this cutter, watch the ball handler, dribbler, and their primary defender, because I know my partner is going to extend out here. I saw him coming in the rotation. He's going to extend out here and pick this play up for me. So this is a great play to pregame. Draw it out on your board just so that everybody's comfortable, and especially that trail, because if you remember back from the beginning, pretty much this entire play was in the trail's primary. And if we'd have left all that to the trail, they probably would have had some issues going on here. So just a good example of staying with the play and getting the foul on that contact. Okay, any questions on that play or any comments anybody has? Okay, I'm just going to roll on to the next one here. This next play is a drive with some rotation and coverage on it. We'll just kind of take a look at it. I've got our areas marked out here with the orange area is the lead, the blue area is the center, and our trail's kind of out of the picture, but they're just off the edge here with that ball handler dribbler in the green. And again, it's a little blurry, but that ball handler dribbler is up here right on the free throw line extended. And of course, as we know, that drive goes down the lane. That's really the lead's responsibility. If we take a second and look at the way this play set up, we've got a competitive matchup here in front of the C. We've got a competitive matchup over here that the lead is responsible for, even though they're kind of outside the lane, but the trail is going to be on this initial matchup. And then the lead is also responsible for this matchup. This makes sense based on what we know about, what we talked about RAAA last week. And so we're going to take a look at what happens on this play, on this drive. So sometimes if we get one of these matchups up here that might step in high, this is a great thing to pregame here to say, hey, I'll help you out with this high contact up here. You know, I've kind of joked with some people, you know, I'm not very tall, as we all know, and sometimes catching what's going on up here at the top of the lane when I've got to look through post players like this isn't the easiest thing in the world. So, you know, I always encourage my crew, if you see something that happens out here, you know, within that semicircle in here, help me out with that, because there's a good opportunity or a good chance that I can't see that based on who's standing in my way. So when we look at this play, you know, the center could help by anticipating what their matchup's going to do here. If that drive's going down the other side and I'm the C here, I'm going to kind of sneak a peek over here to help my lead out, because they might try to come down here if this defender steps in and try to split them. So I can be a good partner to help with that. If I'm the trail official, I'm on that ball handler dribbler in the first place, and I'm probably going to curl in here and kind of try to take a look down the backside, so that if there's any side-to-side contact here on my BHD, I can help with that as well. There might be a foul up here right away, that once there's contact down here, it's not even going to matter because we got the first call up here. So as this play progresses, and you can see the player in white coming down the floor here, down the middle of the lane, you've got the red players are starting to converge. Okay, so the lead took a step a little bit closer, pinched down just a little bit, and has stopped and is taking a look at the RA here. We can see that those players are outside of it. You've got two players to look at, because there's one on both sides. The center, again, has looked here, but now those players have gotten beat. So potentially could maybe even take a step to help out here, or maybe a step down to take a look, just to improve their angle here. And as that play progresses, now you can see where the contact happens. Okay, so we've got contact right here. This player was established. You can tell, even though the C's in our way, that they were 2 feet down, torso facing. So this should be a pretty easy play for the lead to make here. If not, the center certainly has a fantastic look at that, following them in, and can also come with that secondary cadence whistle like Kevin was mentioning. And that can be a crew saver. Maybe the lead, for some reason, took a look over here. And if we take a look at what this defender did, they stayed out of the way. But if you notice, they've got their arms back here. You could have a potential hold here. Your trail might be able to help with that. But the center, this whole play opens up to the center. So if our lead doesn't have a whistle here, and the center's got a great look at it, because as we looked at the last two slides, they should have plenty of opportunity to help with this. They can certainly come in and help with this call. If the lead looks at them like, did you have them out of the RA? Absolutely. Okay, we go ahead and go with the play. Or if their feet were in the RA, as a center, you can come with information if we need to reverse the call or we just need to confirm it. So again, just kind of a good look at at what our coverages are and what our help can be, that this might be a crew saver call, or it just might be a confirmation call if we have a second cadence whistle from that center official. Any questions on this play? In two-person, this coverage is going to be the same thing. And I just want to address that because I know we're talking about three and we're all hopeful that we get more three-person games, and we think it's coming, but we still work a fair amount of games in two-person. Now the center, and two-person is going to be the trail. They're probably going to be a little bit higher here, but they're going to start with that initial coverage here. Okay, you might step in and follow them down depending on what you do, and then come out here for that rebound help. But there's nobody really blocking your view, so you can look ahead and help your lead out with that as well. So two-person coverage on this can be the same for the most part, and we can still pick up that RA and still help each other out. So with that's kind of a great example, both in two or three. But again, pre-game it. I'll come and help you, that kind of stuff, so that if you do have a question, you can just help your partner confirm the call.
Hey, MJ, this snapshot you have here is just another little example for some of the younger officials to see if you haven't seen a lot of plays where you start seeing the hands are coming forward. And we talked about that verticality last week. Eric and I did just about, we can't play defense with our hands straight above us. So this would be a great example where the hands will start to come forward and when you get hit in the chest. And it might look like she wasn't in her verticality plane, but this is just I just popped in my head. I thought I'd share that. So
yeah, great point, Tristan. Yeah, because I know you and Eric both showed that last week. And again, that's what's so important here, to find that, a step before that, to find that defender and make sure that they were legal to start with, because yeah, this is just a reaction. So absolutely, good point. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Okay, this play, all right, this play is whacked. This play is messed up from the beginning. Okay, and yes, I'm in on this play. I think if we take a look at where our officials are on this play, I watched this clip a couple times, and then I actually had to go back to the game and find it. And I think what happened here, at first I thought we missed a rotation, but I think what happened is I think the ball handler dribbler came across half court on the C side. And I'm the C over here. So I think I stayed high with it. I probably should have just, once they kind of moved towards the middle of the floor, I should have rotated down a little bit more. But remember, if that ball handler dribbler comes across on the C side and they're tight enough to make your C want to stay up there and officiate that, force lead, force that rotation right away, because otherwise your C could get hung out to dry out here if that one of these defenders steps up and we got a trap or something. So I think that's what happened. Well, I know that's what happened on this play, but when I started with the clip, I'm like, holy smokes, what happened to us here? So anyway, I just want to talk about this because even regardless of the fact that we're kind of out of whack here, you can see that the trail's on ball. You can see that the C recognizes that the trail's on ball and looks off ball. You can tell that they're looking off ball, potentially watching even this action here to see what's going to happen. And then the lead is looking across because that's where the matchups are. If the lead stayed in their area, they're refereeing air here. So again, I think if I recognize this, and I mean, and it happens, we all get caught in situations like this. If this happens right here, as I'm the lead, I'm coming over right away. All right, because these are the only two players on this half of the court. Okay, these two are a step over, and every other player is on the C side. So as a lead, go right away. And then our coverage is still going to be pretty much the same. It's just that our C is going to step down here. So regardless, we've pretty much got these matchups covered right here. So, but now the guard's going to go to the wing. Okay, and again, recognizing the potential play as a lead, I'd be going, even though my matchups here, this is still my primary, I'd be coming across over here, because let's think about what's the next play. All right, if this pass is going to the wing, what are they going to try to do? They're either going to try to get it into this cutter coming around, or they're going to take it to this wing and they're going to bring this cutter around to the low block and try to inlet pass here. This lead's going to have a lot better look at this play if they're standing over here than if they're looking at butts and elbows running away from them. So at this point, as a lead, I'd be rotating sooner. Again, like I said, this play is kind of whack from the beginning, but we can recognize it and we can fix it. So go ahead and move, and we can talk about it in the locker room and go, okay, yeah, that was kind of a whack deal to start with, but we got the play covered. The other thing that I wanted to point out here, and those of you that have come to camp and you've heard me say this, especially here as a trail, and I'm not saying this just because it's me, but you can see that my trail here is doing the same thing, already moving in anticipation of the play. This player is going to pass here. Okay, I'm already taking a step up so that I can see through this defender and this offender. If I stayed back here in that spot, I'm right behind the offensive player. She catches the pass. She comes up to defend it. By the time I get out here to take a look through that, the contact's already over. So, you know, that's one of the things that I've talked with people about at camp. When you know that pass is coming, start to move so that you can be in a position to see through the offense and the defense when they catch the ball. That's where this player is going to try to knock it out. She's not going to wait for her to catch it, square up, and then try to knock the ball out. So just put yourself in that position a little bit sooner. Okay, coverage wise, again, we've got our trail here is not going to officiate air because there's really nobody here. So she's looking across, you can tell by her head, and our lead's still here, you know, feeling that maybe she needs to stay here and take a look at what's developing here, because they are on this side of the floor. So regardless of the fact that we're kind of in a funky situation here, we still got this play covered. So now the ball moves to the wing, okay, or from the wing down into the low corner or the deep corner, and now our lead is rotating. Okay, so this might be a little bit late, okay, but we still have some adequate coverage here. If this was a quick inlet pass here, the lead would kind of be taken out of it because they can't see this. If this player is right-handed and she tries to seal and comes this way, she'll have a pretty good look at the defensive matchup. But if she's left-handed or feels that she can't take that shot, she's going to turn the other way. The defender will step out and she'll take this official right out of the play here. So just a couple of things to think about, knowing your post players. Are they right-handed, left-handed? What's their tendency? Which way do they go? Can help you be in the right position for the next play. Now, in this spot, because this lead has this late rotation, it required me to cover this play in the corner as well, which is fine in our rotations. For high school, that's my coverage anyway. Okay, so I'm still on ball here, but as soon as that drive starts, then my lead's going to have to pick that up. So when we take a look at this next slide, here comes that drive, okay? And as that drive starts to happen, can you see this hand wrap right here? Now I'm not so sure that my lead's going to pick that up, because I think if you look at her head, she's looking out here wide, and she's still kind of in the middle of the lane. So now we've kind of unbalanced our coverage, because this post play might not, you know, I'm not sure if my new C is looking in there yet or not. As the old C here My look, as soon as that player's beat here, is to look inside here and help out. But as we know, that all happens pretty quick. And I'm not so sure that as the new trail here, I'm going to be able to see that wrap. But this center official has a pretty good look at it. Okay. So we finally get our rotation across here. The drives come in baseline. If you look at this defensive player now, you can see that that wrap has moved up, has got their hand around the shoulder now. Okay, so again, the only person that can probably see that is the C. All right, to take a look at that, that could be deemed an illegal screen. It could be deemed a hold. If she starts backing her out, that's automatic for the C, but the C is the one that's going to have to come and pick that up. The leads picked up that baseline drive because they finished their rotation. And then the new trail here is going to have to also take a look inside, step down, and help with any rebound. Cooperating. Whoops, let me go back. So that off-ball attentiveness is really what we're kind of talking about. So this is where that wrap started here. The ball's out in the corner. Look at what she can see here from the center. Okay, there is no other matchup here. So if you have to extend and take a look at that, this drive's not going to matter if you call this hold. Okay, and you can pretty much tell she's got a handful of jersey here. And then as that drive comes, you know, her coach has told her she's got to seal. Okay, so she's sealing all right, but she's moved her arm up. She's got her arm straight back behind her, and she's got that gal locked in. So again, you know, is she holding her? That's what you have to make that decision. Is she backing out? Is she screening her out with illegal contact? Or are they both just standing there letting that play go by? The other part of this play is we've got the RA here. So I'm going to back up here. So as that drive comes around the corner here, we've got the RA. If this player, and I don't think she's going to, because looking at our potential play here, her job here is to seal. I don't think she's going to spin around and try to take a charge here, but the center official can certainly help with the RA because the lead's going to be looking at the ball handler dribbler. So just a couple of things to think about and be aware of. As the center official, you're looking at that wrap, you're looking at the legality of that post play, and then you're also ready to help with that RA play, because again, this could be a crew saver play, because I know that that lead is primary on ball handler dribbler and primary defender, and they're going to have a tough time picking that RA up. Okay, questions on that play at all? Plus, this could lead to some crazy stuff on the other end. If play could get rough, and it's going to make your day a little less fun if you have to start calling some other pushing and shoving because of rough post play that started on this end of the floor.
Hey, MJ, would you call that an intentional foul if she's really grabbing her jersey to hold her back?
I wouldn't call it intentional. It's just part of it. I'll be honest with you, Steve. The only way I've called an intentional foul when somebody had to hold their jersey is when they grabbed them from behind and the jersey stretched out about 4 feet. You know, that's because that says she didn't let go or he didn't let go. But in this case, I just call this a hold. You know, it's a common post play. Okay. I think teams are better at it now because we've called it more. So coaches aren't coaching for it. They coach them to reach back and find them, but they're not coaching them to hold them as much as they used to, you know, in years past. I had a situation the other night where the player put both hands back, kind of like this player did, only the post player didn't do anything. They just stood there like a spectator. And I was ready to call the hold. And then I'm like, well, there's nothing really illegal. They're not holding them. The defender didn't try to move or do anything. They didn't restrict their movement. So when we go back to legal guarding position and illegal contact, there really wasn't any. So I had nothing and we played on.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay. Pass crash. I know we talked about this with legal guarding a time or two ago. I just wanted to talk through this play a little bit because this is very common. Initial coverage on this play, again, you know, this is a 3-person coverage here. But if we take a look at where everybody's looking, of course, the trails on ball handler, dribbler, primary defender. We've got this wing player out here that's doing nothing, so we can leave them alone. Their matchup is far, far away. The lead's looking into the post here. We've got players coming down, you know, especially on this drive, they could be potentially, you know, trying to seal out or something here with one step. And then our center doesn't have too much doing, so they're probably taking a look in here too. So on this drive, okay, you can see that our players have now set up into their front court set. And of course, now we have a left-handed dribbler, okay, ball handler dribbler. So again, something to be aware of. Where's this next play going to come if this dribbler runs into some interference here from the defense? Okay, probably out here. So anticipating where that pass is going to go and what's going to happen. Do we have legal guarding established here? We had legal guarding initially here on the slide prior, and in process right here, you can see that the BHD is beating their primary defender. This play was from a couple years ago, so we don't have an RA on the floor, but in today's world, these defenders are way in front of the RA, so that's really not a matter to worry about at this point. As that player passes, you can see the pass to the wing, it got a little fuzzy, so I just put the ball out here. You can see that that offensive player and the defense, their primary defender, both start to go to the floor because the offensive player created contact. And of course, the lead in this particular situation went with the pass. Okay, this is the way this was pre-gamed with this crew. So the lead went with the pass, the trail stayed with the crash. Whoops. And you can see what happens here, okay? So this offensive player goes in here like a bowling ball, takes down the primary, the secondary, and then there's a third defender down there, just like mows them all down, okay? You can see that the lead is looking out here with the ball because they're ready to shoot it. You can see the trails come in, taking a look at that play in there, and yeah, you can recognize that lean, okay? So if you've ever seen Jared work, you recognize the lean, and he's taking a good look at that play, and then he's punching it. So he had a good look at it. When he blew the whistle, that ball was still in her hand, so we didn't have anything else going on here. But again, that's something to talk about depending on when that contact happened, when that play, when that foul occurred. Now, in this situation, our center official over here was kind of a spectator in the whole thing because everything happened on the left side of the court because, of course, this point guard was left-handed. In a two-person game, you know, if we're working two-person, you know, think about the same situation, but pre-game it. We know we've got a left-handed guard probably coming this way down the floor. The lead doesn't really have to go out and take a look at at an offensive player who's standing outside the three-point arc with no defender. So pregame, how we're going to cover this, right? In a two-person game, my trail is going to be over here where my center is. That pass is going to go. That defender is going to come hammering in here. She's well below the line where our, even working the arc, our trail would cover. So the lead's going to have kind of a lot in their lap. But is there any reason to cover this player outside of making sure that you know that they are outside the three-point line? So the trail can come in and help with this. If the lead takes a quick peek out there, the trail can come in here and, you know, call this very, very easily. Because if we go back and look at this play, okay, as a trail official here in two-person, once they gave up that BHD that starts to drive, they got nothing else to look at. That pass goes away from them. They can just put their field of vision down here and they can pick that up very, very easily. So just again, you know, how to pregame this. If your lead's going to go out here with that, the trail's got to stay in here. I actually said to Jared the next time we had a timeout, because this ended up at my feet. I said, I'm really sorry that I didn't stay with that play. He goes, we did that exactly the way we pregamed it. Okay. today's world, we switch our coverage a little bit. I would pregame that I'm staying with that drive because we've changed our coverage to cover the lane. I would have stayed with the drive. He would have gone here. I'd have got this. I don't care how you do it. Just make sure you talk about it with your crew. Nobody cares how you cover it, but they're going to care if you miss it. So again, this player went in there like a bowling ball. So we had to have a whistle on it. And we covered it the way we had pre-gamed it. So just talk about these plays. I always have like 3 or 4 odd plays at the bottom of my pregame list. This is one of them to make sure we don't miss this. Okay. So with that, those are just kind of some situations that are a little unique. Keys to off-ball coverage, again, pre-game them, trust your partners. I always figure, hey, we're on these games together. We all put in our practice or our study, I should say. We all watch film or we all watch clips. We're all good play callers. So trust your partners to call their play. Anticipate those plays so that you can move, anticipate their movement so you can move and improve your angle so you can have an educated look at what's going on. Knowing legal guarding position, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the position of players, what's legal, what's not, that little mental checklist, because then that makes you a decision maker. It allows you to make a decision based on what you saw, not just react in a, oh my God, holy crap, what just happened kind of mindset. None of us want to do that. So that's why we do education. And that's why you tuned in tonight, because I'm sure it wasn't just to see our PowerPoints, but with that, just to kind of walk through some things on off-ball coverage. We talked about some classic plays. We talked about a couple of strange plays like the pass crash, and I showed you what happens when the play gets whacked from the very beginning. But it's important to talk about that with your crew so that we can trust in the fact that our partners are covering different parts of the court, and we're not all ball watching. If we're all ball watching, we got problems, and I think we're beyond that. So with that, if anybody has any questions, we can certainly talk through them. If you need me to pull up PowerPoints back up and look at them, we can. But other than that, I promised that we would keep this a little bit shorter. I know there's a little playoff football going on. I actually stopped my game so I could not miss anything. But folks, I applaud you all for officiating in this awkward season of COVID, and I wish that you all avoid this and stay safe. And I know the mask is kind of a pain in the face, but you know what? Many of us have worked through the years, and we've worked through injuries and blisters and bad knees and all that kind of stuff. Wearing a mask is a piece of cake. Yeah, it's hot. Yeah, it's a little hard to breathe. Well, it's hot and hard to breathe in July in Minnesota too. So I know that we're all going to be able to do this. So I appreciate your efforts. I applaud you for hanging in there, and I wish for safety for all of you and vaccines for everyone. So with that, I've got nothing more unless people have questions. So thanks to Kevin for his part, and thanks for Jared and Tristan for putting this together. Tristan as charter clinician as well, organizing it. So and thanks to everybody for their hard work through the season.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here just before we say goodbye, give anyone an opportunity to form any questions if they have it. Coming up in a few weeks, I got Royce. He's looking for someone to help him. Maybe Royce, you can chime in unless you did find someone to help you for your traveling discussion that you wanted to have. And by all means, anyone else that has any other ideas, any other topics they want to cover, please shoot me an email, send me a text, give me a call. If you have something unusual happen in your game, you think it'd be a good topic, send them my way so we can get 1 or 2 more topics yet. Our plan is to have 2 or 3 more before the season's done, but we're going to space them out here now every couple of weeks. So nothing's off the table as far as these are concerned. So please feel free to send me any of your ideas. Do we got any questions from anyone? Anyone want to jump in?
Hey guys, I actually had 2 RA plays on Saturday night yesterday.
How did they go?
I caught them both. Right, that was awesome what you did last week. I really appreciated that review. One of them was like on a fast break, and I remembered a fast break is, it's one against two. This one was two against one, and the one, of course, couldn't get the primary going, went to the other side, and the guy was just right there in the RA, and everything was right there. He was set up 2 feet down, squared up with this other person, but when that contact happened, he was in the RA because he had already backed himself down, between the two of them to get to that spot. Coach just asked me afterwards, he was in the RA. I said, yes, that's kind of why I pointed. I said, in my mask, but that was that one. And then I ended up getting another one, same thing. It was a screen that came around, and secondary defender, was just sitting right there and took it. Again, a perfect. The kid was set up perfectly, but was sitting with his feet in the RA, and the coach, I think, brought that kid out and said to him, I could kind of hear him in the background, you got to know where you are. So, I didn't have any more in the varsity games, both in the JV game. But I think, again, that varsity game opened up that lane. We didn't have hardly anybody in the middle of the lane, after that, because, if you catch those ones, I think it's easier for them to know that we're going to be there and not, miss those kind of events. But I mean, like I said, both of them were absolutely legal guardian position, 2 feet down, facing the defender, and ready to take contact, but they were not in the right spot with their feet.
Perfect. 2 questions for you. How did you feel with the signaling sequence? Did that go pretty good?
It did. So I went with I went down the block, arm up, block, pointed, came around, made sure my partner knew what I had. And then when I presented it to the table, I kind of, always get a little bit anxious of what you're going to say, because I said I have a block, and then I just like put my finger down, in the RA, and that's when the coach then said, was he in the RA? And I said yes, and then I went back and we did our free throws. But when you're at the table, you point your finger down again, right? Like that you have it in front of the table at that moment, or you just come in with the block.
At the table, you'd just be signaling the block. So it almost seems like it almost worked out well, because that first signal that you gave helped the coach already know what you were ruling on, and you double confirmed it through your voice by answering his question.
Right.
Yeah. So when you get the table, then you would just signal the color, the block signal, and then the number.
Super.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. Awesome. Anyone else got anything else they want to mention here? Anything's open if anyone wants to bring anything up before we close it out.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Do you have to match whistles as refs? Can one of you use an electronic, one use a Fox 40 in the mask?
I know, MJ, I'll leave that to you. You spoke to that the other night. Why don't you go ahead with that?
Yeah, Steve, whatever you're comfortable with is fine. I mean, in today's world with this whole thing, we've got to feel comfortable and we got to be safe out there. I will tell you from experience, the electronic whistle is hard to hear. So if you're going to use that electronic whistle, make sure that you've always got that thing pointed towards the court, because it's just not very loud. I think the sound gets lost in the gym. So yeah, if you're comfortable using it, you sure can. But it's going to sound weird if one of you uses Fox and one uses an electronic, because it really stands out then that you can't hear it. So, but it's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. Schools are just happy that people are showing up to officiate games. So, I know I personally have been using the Action Zebra with the whistle that fits inside that I showed a couple weeks ago. And outside, I've shared with a couple people, outside the fact that it feels kind of like you have a pacifier in your mouth all the time because the whistle's right there. It is pretty handy to use. So, and it covers everything. It's adjustable up on the ears. And I went out and ordered another one the other day because I've just started taking them and throwing them right in the laundry with my other stuff, whistle and all. So, and I noticed they were $32.99 before, now they're $27.99. So hot sale in January.
Smoking deal.
Yeah.
Hey,
I was gonna-
MJ.
Yeah.
Paul and I use different whistles. He uses the electronic and I use the actual Fox 40. But he holds it in his right hand, which is usually the hand that he's going up with. And we haven't had any problem hearing that whistle, no matter where we are on the court.
Okay, that's good because probably by bringing it, using it in his hand that he brings up, it brings that sound away from his body and out for everybody to hear. So good. Thanks, Barb.
I was going to make one comment. I was at Century yesterday with the 9th grade games, and it was the boys' first games with the mask, and it's easy for the mask to come down on the players. So whenever it was a free throw, I didn't say anything at the first free throw, but when the second free throw was getting ready, so okay, now this one's live, boys. Let's readjust your mask, please. Let's get it up over your nose. So if I was and I would say thank you. The boys weren't arguing. They were trying to pull it up because all game long the masks were coming out, and we want them to have it over the nose. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So I was trying to be gentle and reminding them as often as I could in the game. We're on the second free throw. This one's live, or the jump ball that's live, or a throw. Okay, it's live. We're live, boys. Let's readjust the mask. And they weren't arguing, and I was saying thank you, and it seemed to work out okay when I would do that.
Yeah, thanks, Hal. I think we just have to be vigilant with it. I was doing the same thing on free throws. And as you know, as most of you know, on free throws, I like to kind of stand right in the middle of the lane, like I'm out in front of the RA. And of course, I've had to adjust because they want us to stay back on the baseline. So I've just been saying, hey, catch your breath, mask up, and just a kind of a reminder. I think the kids are pretty good about it. I've had boys games and girls games, college women's games, etc. And I think, don't ask me why, but I've had a couple high school girls games too, or here, and they seem to be better at it than the boys. I'm not sure why, but I think just keep reminding them. Just say, mask up, keep it up. And I had somebody the other day that was kind of giving me a little bit of the hate eye. I said, hey, come on, it's a safety issue. And then they're like, oh yeah, you're right, kind of thing. So yeah, just keep killing them with kindness, Hal, and everyone, and we'll get through this.
Awesome. Anything else from anyone else before we say goodnight? All right, perfect. MJ, Kevin, thank you very much for your time and diligence and efforts tonight. Greatly appreciated. Good topics. Kevin, I liked your 3 Bs. I'm going to throw that third one in to my pregame as well, the be needed. I've heard the other 2 quite often, but that be needed is a different way of looking at it too. So thanks for that. So with that, I am going to tell everyone good night. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening and have a great, safe week. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.